Do you want to know how the greatest idealist in the history of Western philosophy came into being? His most beloved teacher faced tragedy due to an unjust trial. This deeply moved him. He envisioned an ideal world beyond reality and firmly believed that was the true reality. But is this really true? Let's delve into the philosophical world of Plato together.
Hello, everyone. Today, I will introduce to you a person from ancient Greece considered as a foundational figure in Western philosophy. One of Western history's three great philosophers. His name is Plato. Last time, we talked about his teacher, the great Socrates. Plato's student was Aristotle. These three are incredibly famous. I consider them to be the sages of their time. Plato is a fascinating master of his craft. I have reviewed his life, and I believe he dedicated his life to seeking the truth of humanity, the world, and even the human heart. He did not just study philosophy. He went beyond and studied the entirety of politics, government, ethics, and the matters of human society and the lives of all beings. We ordinary people think, what does philosophy have to do with us? Every day, we just work, get off work, and go home to eat dinner. That's about it. However, I believe that after listening today, you'll find that philosophy is absolutely related to each of us. Kunthi, why don't you start by introducing him?
Plato had a core philosophical idea. He believed we have two worlds. One is our sensory world, which is easier to understand. It's the world we can see and touch, like tables, chairs, animals, plants, and humans. It's the world we live in. This is the world we perceive through our senses. Plato believed it changes constantly based on time, people, and the environment. It is unstable. He thought that the things we perceive have a perfect form. He believed this world of ideas transcends our sensory, non-material world. For example, concepts like justice. In the world of ideas, there exists a perfect form of justice. It's eternally unchanging. In our real world, every country uses different laws to interpret, present, and defend justice. But perhaps none do it perfectly. Interesting. I would like to ask Grandmaster if this world of ideas truly exists. I feel the sensory world seems more real to me.
This world of ideas, I think, does not exist. I think Plato believed in it because it is a reflection of his hope. Master Plato imagined a world of ideas. It existed within his spiritual world. We need to study Plato's thought patterns, which were influenced by his dissatisfaction with the politics and governmental structure of his time. He observed many phenomena and behaviors that displeased him. His other statements also reinforce this point. For example, he said that if one were to enter politics, those managing society should be individuals who practice self-cultivation or are knowledgeable in philosophy. Only then can they understand the concepts of hierarchy, politics, and military affairs. If they are not professionally trained in philosophy, it might be inappropriate for them to manage society. He used an analogy, saying that if someone without medical training were to treat patients, it would be unacceptable. Yet, how many people have truly undergone the tests of philosophy and morality to become someone capable of managing society? There were almost none. Many were uncultured. This relates to one of the societal forms of that time. Shyanka, do you remember? At that time, in the region of Greece over 2,000 years ago, in the operation of their government, was there an emperor?
No, there wasn't an emperor.
No.
No.
Because everyone voted. If a decision needed to be made, everyone discussed and voted together.
In the Greek region at that time, especially in the Athens region, they did not belong to any nation at that time. The term nation implies certain attributes. They didn't have that. They were a city-state. A city-state can refer to a city and its surrounding areas, or it can be a coalition of cities. For example, this city and its neighboring 2 cities band together. A coalition of 3, 5, or even 10 cities. Together they form a city-state. They would come together and help each other out. They uphold the interests of the city-state. Authoritative figures are recommended, assessed, and then made an elder. In principle, it's actually a very fair state of primitive democracy. They were from large families or nobility, or people with prestige and power, since they were recommended to become an elder. They would participate in congressional meetings and pass laws, establish ethical rules, and decide on requirements for agricultural work during the year. For example, when to catch insects, when to plant, and when to harvest, or how to handle certain crops and grains before selling them. And they would handle emergency matters. When they held meetings, it was similar to a round-table discussion. As their city-state alliance grew, so did the assembly. Everyone had to speak loudly to be heard. Sounds lively.
It was lively.
It sounds like they were playing drinking games. That's how loud they were. They expressed their thoughts on current issues. Without an emperor, decisions were made collectively.
They would vote on decisions.
Yes, it was about consensus. The minority yields to the majority.
Plato, in his work The Republic, suggested that the leaders of the city-state should be philosophers. Is this suggestion different from the concept of a round table or parliament?
Yes, in many of his later expressions, he compared it to being like a doctor. If you haven't undergone rigorous medical training, you can't treat patients. The more you treat, the more may die. You're certainly not a good doctor. But how many of these elders, political veterans, have studied philosophy and management? Many people simply do not understand. Some say someone was just a farmer before, or a fisherman. Yet, he also speaks and votes. Does he understand political philosophy and management? No, he doesn't. Plato's teacher Socrates was sentenced to death by such an assembly vote. They executed his teacher by making him drink poison. This deeply affected Plato. He thought, look at this blind democracy. They don't understand basic principles, yet they vote. The majority agreed to punish his teacher. Thus, his teacher was executed. It would be best if someone truly wise became the most powerful ruler. This way, his teacher would not have been blindly executed. Only then would the world be fair. Today's social leaders that become presidents, Congress members, or governors and mayors ideally should have studied subjects like management, political science, and sociology, including philosophy, literature, and history. Knowing these subjects might make it easier to manage government affairs. This is not without reason. However, historical facts showed it wasn't as he imagined.
Yes. He challenged the political system of the time.
Master Plato spoke of this ideal world as being so perfect and so real. It feels as there's another Earth more suitable for human habitation. A feeling so real as if this truly exists. He hoped for a world where the political system that he imagined is a beautiful reality.
I understand this. Many people when moving abroad have high expectations. They think everything is better in the new foreign land. Even the flowers and grass are sweeter. But after arriving, these expectations are shattered by reality.
Is that so? The flowers aren't sweeter after all?
Initially, due to not adapting, it doesn't feel wonderful.
This phenomenon usually occurs among young students and children with limited experience. When you mentioned this, it reminded me of a similar story that happened in Canada. It's a story where high expectations led to disappointing results. This story is over 20 years old, shortly after I arrived in Canada. I read this long news piece in a local newspaper. The story itself was quite tragic. This took place in the 1990s. There was a little girl from China with the last name Wang. She was the only daughter of her family. After she got older, her parents, who had never been abroad themselves, tried every possible way to save money, hoping she could go abroad in the future, to places like Europe and America, to further her studies. When the girl grew up, her parents made every effort to make it happen. Eventually, they found a city in Canada where she could study. She was accepted by a university in Montreal. She was very happy and decided to go. When she arrived in Montreal, Canada, she seemed a bit flustered. Back at home, when it came to chores and everyday needs, apart from buying her own clothes, she knew nothing about other aspects of life. At home, her father did the heavy lifting, and her mother did the rest. She only needed to study. But after going abroad, she had to face life first. Her parents still provided her with money. They weren't very wealthy, but they saved up some money for her to study and live. They still had some money. They first rented a place and then went and bought furniture. We all know that students studying in Canada and the US usually buy furniture that needs assembling. It's cheaper that way, right? This girl has never done this before. She knows nothing. She finally managed to bring back a mattress. After putting it on the floor, she felt like something was missing. Her landlord, an old man, took pity on her. She didn't seem to know anything. "Where's your bed frame?" the old man asked. "Never mind, I'll take you to get one." He helped her buy it and load it onto the car. The old man worked hard and finally managed to get the bed frame set up for her. Then he laid the mattress on top. He barely slept that night helping her out. The girl, though, felt like her world was falling apart. Why do I have to handle such hard things? Why didn't my mom tell me? I don't know how to do it. It's very important for the child to get more practice in everyday life. Developing hands-on skills is so crucial. Sometimes helping with grocery shopping or chores is very necessary. When she got to school, she felt very out of place. In North American universities, the classrooms change. Math is in classroom 1, then English class is in classroom 15. You have to find it yourself. The university is huge. You have to find out where your class is today. It's really disorienting. In her classes, she couldn't understand her professors. She thought her English was good, but once in class, she realized the teacher wouldn't accommodate your language needs, they only teach. Some professors even have accents. British accent, French accent, Italian accent, even Indian accent. You simply can't understand. The child tried hard to keep up, but she felt it was too overwhelming and hard to adapt. She started missing her mom and dad. After 3 months, she insisted on going back. At that time, from Montreal, Canada. There were no direct flights to China. She had to transfer in Vancouver, but at that time, flights from Vancouver to China were not available every day. Sometimes there was only one per week. At that time, there were fewer tourists, not that many people. She needed to wait 3 or 4 days. Problems slowly started to arise during this period. By the third morning, the elderly couple who owned the place waited until after 10 a.m. There was no sign of movement in her room. They thought she might have gone out for a walk, but she didn't answer her phone. Something felt wrong, so they opened her room to check. Oh no, the child had taken a tragic step. She hung herself with her own belt on a shelf beside her bed. She left a note saying, "Dear Mom and Dad, I thought that Canada would be so wonderful, almost like paradise. But after coming here, nothing has been good. I have to do everything myself. I have no friends and face obstacles everywhere. I don't understand the teachers, and there's no one to help me. I want to go home. I miss the days by your side so much. I desperately want to return to you. But why is there still a third day? I can't wait any longer. I'll wait for you in heaven." She was too anxious to stay another night, resulting in a tragic turn of events. This story is about a child who has never left home, never been abroad, never experienced such a thing. I believe many people feel the same about marriage. They think that person loves me so much and is attractive, smart, and witty. But once married, they realize this person is a fraud. They're not that in love with me and not that charming or handsome. They're restless in their sleep and also snore. They're not handsome at all. It's all nonsense. If I had known, I wouldn't have married him. But now that we have kids, what can I do? Things are often idealized when you haven't experienced them. You imagine your future married life to be all happy and wonderful. That's because you've never been married before. I think Master Plato was dissatisfied with the Greek society of his time. He was politically dissatisfied, disappointed. This dissatisfaction became a burden in his heart, like a long fishbone forever piercing his heart.
An endless pain.
Yes, because his teacher's life was taken by this society. He wanted revenge. So, he engaged in idealistic and speculative thinking, even reaching a level of delusion. He proposed to everyone the idea of a perfect world.
Grandmaster, if there was a chance for Plato to become a city-state representative or a leader, even then, the situation would not be as perfect as he imagined, right?
Yes. I've met people from many different professions. I knew a professor who taught operations management abroad. This management professor invested in stocks. He had over $1 million in savings and wanted to buy a house. But he saw an opportunity and bought stocks instead. In just 3 years, he turned his $1 million savings into zero.
He was very well versed in the theory of the stock market. But in practice, reality did not match his theories.
This was also true in ancient China with philosophers and Taoists, like Confucius and Laozi. What level of official positions did they hold? Let's take Laozi, who was a Taoist, for instance. Any Chinese with a bit of education knows him. Everyone sings his praises, saying, "The Tao Te Ching is a true masterpiece." But how high was his official position? He was the head librarian in the Imperial Library. There were no public libraries at that time. How were books written back then? They were written on small bamboo pieces and strung together. Reading a book was like slowly spreading out a bedsheet. Then, the next one was read. His position was that of a head librarian. The Tao he saw, can it ultimately become a true management system? No, it cannot. You are merely dealing with many concepts. His studies are not often about governance, but rather about the understanding of many things. As for Confucius, he traveled to over a dozen countries at the time. Still, none of these truly became a genuine national-level leader. They only sought to gain insight into the world and philosophical truths. Or they studied human nature, or what the will of heaven is. They were merely speculative researchers. Remember, researchers are not practitioners. Researchers are not managers either. You can be very knowledgeable, but not good at management. True management and theoretical teaching are two different things. Plato's ideas are somewhat idealistic. This concept of the Republic and the claim that his world of ideas is more real. The world of ideas and the Republic are one and the same. In that world, the table is perfect. But are there even tables in that world?
That world feels very distant from us.
It doesn't matter. That world doesn't exist. He hoped that the more realistically he speaks, he can inspire the politicians. You should listen to my perspective and theory. Choose someone sensible, maybe one of my disciples, to be your ruler. Don't use any random commoner, artist, businessman. Tell those fools to just go home. The sensible ones should govern the country.
Returning to Plato, did he have the opportunity to try to realize his own ideals?
He indeed was creating opportunities. He felt that just putting all his ideas and stories together and conveying them to the people didn't have much of an effect. The country is still annoyingly the same. I have to make some connections. Build bridges with wealthy and influential people. And it actually worked. He opened an academy, a prestigious institution. With many students, it had its advantages. They quickly introduced Plato to a king from another country. When the king heard about him, he learned he was the wisest philosopher from Athens, Greece. He appointed Plato as an advisor. You will advise me in the future. Plato was like the Zhuge Liang of that country. The king counted on him, but when Plato truly began working with a king, he realized he was daydreaming before.
He was facing reality now.
For example, Plato would say, if you keep up this attitude, you will lose your nation and your life. The king was furious. How dare you speak to me like that? I'll make you lose your life right now. I'll demote you to a slave and give you 50 lashes. Plato was beaten and sold to another country. During the process of being sold, his students heard about it and rescued him halfway. This man was already 60 years old. He nearly lost his life. Yes, that happened 2 or 3 times. It was always due to speaking too much. Being eager to teach others can be a good thing. But it can also be a bad thing. You must consider who you are advising. Does the other party listen to you? Can they accept the way you speak? If you scold a king as you would a child, won't the king's dignity and pride be damaged? If his reputation is damaged, you become the scapegoat, right? So in real life, he tried to realize his republic. But the kings were not as benevolent as he imagined. They were not easy to deal with. Many kings possessed both the qualities of a scholar and a bandit. Only with these traits could they become kings.
They shared different goals. Plato's ideals weren't their ideals.
Exactly. Think about siblings, growing up in the same family. You receive a similar upbringing, but do you have the same life goals?
No.
Correct. Even the views on choosing a partner differ. You might like someone tall, while others prefer someone chubby, right? Some look for someone clever and slick, while others prefer someone honest. Everyone has different preferences. Moreover, between you and a king, it's impossible to have shared ideas. I also think Plato only wanted to fulfill his own desires and goals. He wanted to use the king's power to realize his ideals, which was wrong. If you were the king's senior advisor or strategist, you should assist and support the king in his goals. You cannot set your own agenda. Your goal is just to follow the king's lead. But when your goal becomes too deliberate, problems will arise. That's how it is. For a master in theory, whether for military or philosophy, when it comes to practical application, there is a significant gap.
Grandmaster, Plato also had an interesting theory about how we acquire knowledge. He believed that humans have souls, and that this knowledge is innate to us. We're born with it. When we are born, we already possess a complete understanding of this world. It's all within our souls, we just haven't remembered it yet. Philosophers gradually guide us, and slowly, we extract this knowledge from our souls and remember it. Grandmaster, how do you view this theory?
It's also due to the era he lived in. He lived more than 2,300 years ago, around the time of Confucius and Laozi in China. In such an era, we could hardly see any technology. There was almost no technological information. Books and writing were scarce. So in that era, people developed speculative ideas like this. This is not surprising. It's quite normal. People's understanding of nature and natural science was not as advanced as it is now. I believe that humans are born with some inherent characteristics and traits. And there are slight differences between individuals. Some people lean more towards literature. Then reading tends to lead to greater achievements. Some are more inclined towards the sciences. For instance, learning computers, programming, or studying chemistry, physics, or accounting. They excel in these areas.
Because we are born with inherent differences. Some study well, some do not.
Yes.
Some can do physical work, others do mental work. If we all received perfect knowledge, we should all be perfect people.
Yes, I am not certain about what Plato said about the soul already instilled with perfect knowledge. Saying you inherently have this perfect knowledge, I don't quite agree. However, I believe his original motivation and purpose were singular. It was to hope that this society, or the society he envisioned, would become more perfect. He proposed the idea of an ideal world of ideas. Ultimately, he also stated that everyone in that world is actually perfect. This notion resembles the ancient Chinese Tao philosophy, which states that human nature is inherently good. Inherent goodness and inherent knowledge, there is a similarity between the two.
Yes, Plato said in that ideal world, people are inherently good.
They are inherently good.
Yes.
Besides being knowledgeable, they are also kind.
Yes, truly perfect people.
Grandmaster, are people inherently good at birth?
If we view it philosophically, we won't be able to finish today. It becomes necessary to clarify what is good and evil. If a child doesn't eat properly, is it good or evil? Then they grow older and say that fat is not beautiful. So they stop eating for the sake of beauty. Is this good or evil? Besides being hungry, is it good or evil? Exploring the essence of good and evil is actually a very valuable lesson. Let's give it a try and then continue the discussion. The audience might find it amusing to see the three of us argue. Let me say something bold. If someone's profession, regardless of the era, is being butcher who slaughters pigs, cattle, and sheep, are his actions good or evil?
From the perspective of taking life, it's evil.
And making a living, he is good to his family. You say it's good for his family. Then everyone enjoys the meat from the animals he slaughters. Everyone eats heartily and happily, with rich nutrition and good health. Is this good or evil?
He is also contributing to society, right? To some extent, it's good. It can be considered good. But from a moral standpoint, killing is not good. It's really hard to say clearly.
You say it's a sin because of your belief, but the butcher doesn't think so. If you spend money, whether directly or indirectly, it's you who paid me to kill, so the sin is on you, because the meat ends up in your mouth, not in mine. Let me ask you two again. Is the sin greater for the one who slaughters pigs or the one who eats pork?
Eating is the bigger sin, because if you trace the reason, it's the demand from people who eat pork that causes this.
All right, here's another question. Is the sin greater for eating pork or for raising pigs?
Eating is still the greater sin.
Also, how did pigs come into this world?
Pigs are born from mother pigs.
Then blame the heavens. They created pigs. They are plump, so people eat their meat. Being naturally fat isn't a crime, but humans have taken them as food to eat, right? When the heavens created them, they didn't consider humans eating them, right? This sin is heaven's, so you are innocent. I release you on behalf of the gods. Isn't it amusing? From a philosophical perspective, in many matters, people are innocent. If you look at it one-sidedly, the world's biggest villain would be butchers. But that's not the case. The karma is created by all who pay for the slaughter. Are those who eat meat guilty? If that's the case, then are tigers guilty? So eating meat is a sin, but eating plants is not. If eating grass is not a sin, then those who eat grass are angels. If these are all life forms, sheep eat more grass than tigers eat meat, don't they? The sheep complained. Who made me a sheep? Creator. I can't digest anything else. I can't eat anything else. I can only digest grass, right? So you made me to eat grass. Shanka.
Yes, is it a sin for sheep, pigs, and cows to eat grass? No, because it's the natural order. They were made to eat grass for survival.
Do you know what cows and sheep say? They say eating grass is not a sin. I am protecting the earth and maintaining the balance of the ecosystems, you know? If I don't eat grass, and it spreads, other creatures would be crowded out. If you study biology, you'll understand. Grass should be eaten, wheat should be eaten. Some trees get diseases and die in large numbers, or natural forest fires. It's the natural order. Without this order, the earth would be destroyed faster. Therefore, sheep eating the grass, and tigers eating sheep, all contribute to the protection of the earth. Philosophers find joy in their research. The more they study, the more engaged they become, because philosophy influences everything. Philosophy impacts every aspect of our lives. In Plato's life, he made outstanding contributions. In fact, he made significant contributions to philosophy, politics, and science. He established an academy of his own. This academy was founded in Athens. The academy continued for over 900 years, offering many disciplines. It only ceased after the Roman Empire. In that era, it was considered the highest education institution in the Western world. Founded by him, its influence was immense. Plato dedicated his life and his entire life's experiences to the deep study of philosophy. His greatest hope was the concept of the ideal state. He wished to influence the entire political situation of his time and bring about a sense of reform. In reflecting on his life, I realized he was an extraordinary person. Someone who used his entire life and being to pursue truth. In ancient China, such a person was a sage. Sages believed that those who attain the way are greatly aided. Only those who attain the way can rule the world. Only after understanding the way of heaven, earth, and humanity can they make people's lives better. In terms of nurturing talent, Plato had exceptionally outstanding students. At that time, his students had spread across Europe. They were outstanding talents of his school. His most remarkable student was Aristotle. His student is even more interesting. In the next episode, we will talk about Aristotle's story. It's very entertaining, even more so than his teachers. I invite everyone to listen to my talk then. The story about Aristotle. Thank you for watching.
小小的红点里，人生就此欢喜。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了，我美丽了。在茫茫人海之中，让我与你相遇。小小的红点里，人生变得神奇。